With this innovative software, you can keep all your school's information in one place. Accessible from anywhere at any time. Whether it's about tracking attendance, grading, or students' performance, MavPress makes it easy for you to stay on top of it all. Get started with MavPress School Management System today. MavPress, simplifying school management.
Eight minutes past 9 o'clock, the 11th day of March 2023. Welcome aboard the big set on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music, great friends. Good morning. My name is Wesi Gebanyaji. We are on air and online on www.cruisefm.com/stream and on all social media platforms. 912 CROOZE FM on Twitter, 91.2 CROOZE FM on Facebook and Instagram. And we are CROOZE TV for TikTok and YouTube. You can be able to stream live. The visuals are crystal clear on our YouTube channel, CROOZE TV, courtesy of Creative Digital Media. With me in studio are already three amazing gentlemen. Edgar Mtundisa, who is a petroleum engineer, and he does a lot of stuff in the East African community. And the topic today is very suitable for him, who has traversed the region to talk about youth, trade, and the politics. We also have Bright Mhomza, coordinator of the National Unity Platform here in Bara. And we have a guest in the very land, Thomas Mo Salita, who is an economist and a lecturer at Makerere University Business School. I want to welcome you once again. For those that are locked in from wherever you are, we welcome you. Find courtesy to join the conversation on all our social media handles. I've put the question on a topic of discussion this morning on Twitter and Facebook. Please drop us a line. But later on the show, I'll give you an opportunity to participate by way of call on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. The topic of this discussion this morning is on the Kenya, the biggest economy in East Africa, came out and issued a letter to all and sundry that there will no longer be importation of powder or milk to Kenya from especially Uganda. And this is meant to caution the industry from the surplus production and low producer prices. And the board made a decision to temporarily suspend the issuance of these import permits until further notice. Now, in the spirit of the East African community, is this some kind of protectionism on Kenya? Or just like any country that would be interested in protecting their interests? Let me get you through the recap of what caught the attention of the headlines this week. Now, the legal fraternity and basically all the Ugandans, we woke up to the news of the passing of the Supreme Court, the Constitutional / Court of Appeal Justice, Kenneth Kakuru, who died in Nairobi after battling prostate cancer. Today he will be laid to rest at Rweshuri. I call upon all right-thinking men to really go and, pay their tribute to Justice Kakuru. Very remembered on the age limit bill that was put before the Constitutional Court, where he had the one-man dissenting judgment. And he has been able to contribute so greatly to our jurisprudence. I take this honor to really send my condolences to the family, the judiciary, and all the learning and land friends. Now, the Forum for Democratic Change is in high gear for a nationwide recruitment exercise. FDC has been on the low lately because of the activities of the NUP, and I think it's more strategic now that as we head up for the 2026 election, they're able to move around to get back to where they were in the very past. Now, Uganda joined the rest of the world to celebrate the International Women's Day. This was held at Sanga in Chiruhura, where a couple of good ladies were awarded medals by His Excellency the President. He still made the call of household incomes, and he rebuked especially the cattle corridor. for land fragmentation. When a person passes away, the kin are dividing land and not putting it to use and all these resources, and they all end up with little. It's a call that we continue to emphasize. Let's keep all that we have together. Now, the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2023 had its first reading, and a letter of financial implication was issued. And the bill is intended to criminalize homosexuality. Now, this is a conversation that is going across the country, not only Uganda, but in Kenya. I was following very closely yesterday, and the religious leaders are protesting against the Supreme Court judgment on the right of association of the gay community. In Kenya, the Supreme Court made its ruling, and whether they can be able to review it, we know for a fact that there have been instances where the Supreme Court has moved away from its prior judgment. So the Kenyans are very fast and united, even in the opposition. They have said, we shall not accept this. It's not part of who we are, and we are looking out for that. That said, in Parliament adopted the Select Committee report on the NSSF, calling for the resignation of the minister and disbanding the NSSF management that we are looking out forward. But the president actually came out and had a comment on this. He said this has nothing to do with Parliament or the IGG. These people should be investigated by the CID and incarcerated. But he's the appointing authority, so waiting on what he will do about it. Majorly, though, last but not least, the Ministry of Health was before the Committee of Parliament on Health, defending the 39 billion supplementary allocation that is meant to, fund and facilitate the controversial Lubowa Hospital, the presidential shoot at Mulago, and the expansion of the different, health center fours. And that's all. Maybe on the international scene that you must know, Congo is planning to have a general election in December 2023 amidst war in Eastern Congo between the government of Kinshasa and the M23. The United Nations Secretary General called on the M23 to respect the agreements that they've been able to sign. There was a video that was trending of President Emmanuel Macron with President Tshisekedi exchanging words about the state of affairs in the Congo. But also important, President Salva Kiir of Sudan fired the defense minister, who doubles as the wife of Riek Machar, who is the vice president. We hope that doesn't trigger war. Now, let me get the mind of our guest this morning before we get into our topic of discussion. Good morning, Edgar Mtundisa, and welcome to the Big Set.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Wesley Banyaji. Good morning to the listeners out there. I'm Edgar Mtundisa, the East African Community Youth Ambassador to Uganda. And I'm very happy to join the show today, especially for this topic of milk products getting banned, milk powder by Kenyan authorities. And I also send my regards again to those viewers out there. And I do hope and pray that people really pay genuine attention to this, because this is a very great issue, and also so somehow personal for some of us, but also to us who do so much care about Africa in general, and not just these small respective countries.
All right, welcome Edgar Mtundisa to the Big Set. Good morning, Sifa Safi, and welcome to the Big Set.
Good morning, Vanyaji, and thanks for having me. Good morning, the gentleman on this side of the table, and good morning, our esteemed listeners.
And viewers.
And viewers, of course.
Yes.
We thank you so much for giving us your time and loving the Big Set every Saturday. We don't take that for granted, myself in particular. Vanyaji was specifically touched by the fact that much as some people are celebrating Women's Day, a man in Luwero decided to give, I don't know whether I should call it a gift or what, but he hired a medical doctor, to kill the wife by offering 5 million shillings.
It depends on what
fortunately,
the wife had done to him.
Would you do the same?
Yes.
I know. But fortunately, Vanyaji, the doctor was very professional, and he turned down the offer, and instead, recorded the whole whatever conversation. And as we speak right now, the issue is before courts of law. So I wonder what that can be. Remember, this woman is a mother of 4 children to this man, and you wonder what is going on in this world. Because there are so many other ways of sorting issues, rather than death and all that. But otherwise, Vanyaji, I'm so happy that the bill was tabled on homosexuality, and in particular, I'm very happy that the Honorable Basali was said that to him he would request that every other member of parliament be compelled to quote a statement, showing whether they support the bill or not. I'm so happy because we want to know where these people stand. These issues of pretending we are fighting against homosexuality when behind the scenes, they're picking and receiving money for the same. That is too much. But also, Banyaji, I want to show that while we were speaking about homosexuality last Saturday, parents and OGs of PMM Girls School in Jinja were demonstrating because of the rumors and allegations of homosexuality in that particular school. But these allegations were proven to be true when they found out that deputy teacher was involving students in this particular vice. So I don't know what is happening in this country.
On sad note, I also want to condole with the family of late Kenneth Kakuru. As an opposition activist, I want to thank him, especially when he stood with us during Tojukwatako campaign. He stood with the majority of Ugandans and said rightly that it was not right. It was not in order for Uganda to have a life presidency, and for that I thank him. I want to tell you, Mr. Banyaji, that this man called Kakuru was the most honest justice. Because he was a realist in life. He didn't fear. He was not fearing anybody. He was not giving a damn. He was a chancellor for Ankara Diocese for over 10 years. His father, Kamjandus, was also a reverend. He died and he was buried at the diocese, at the Ankara Diocese offices. But what is most important is that when he was still reverend, he refused to get the current religious leaders, administer Holy Communion to her without So but now you can look at the person of his father, the father of Mr. Kakuru. So when they say like son, like father, you know what people talk about.
All right, thank you.
I also want to thank the people of Rukunjiri for massively for having welcomed their bishop elect, Mr. Akanjuna. Is it Akanjuna?
Yes,
Akanjuna. And tomorrow we shall be there with them to celebrate the it is called enthronement.
Okay. Thank you.
Enthronement of because we are going to have a new bishop installed tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Let me allow the very land Thomas Mo Salita to say hello to the listeners. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Wesiga. I would like to greet our listeners and viewers of CROOZE TV and CROOZE Radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been brief. Let's hit a very short commercial break. When we come back into our topic of discussion, good morning.
It's tough. It's bold. It's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music. Great friends.
Weekly Sports Roundup.
The weekly Sports Roundup. Sports Roundup.
Curry's three gives the Warriors the lead.
2-0 to PSG and a first in the blue.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed managing a school, keeping track of attendance, grades, and reports? Introducing MavPress. With this innovative software, you can keep all your school's information in one place. Accessible from anywhere at any time. Whether it's about tracking attendance, grading, or students' performance.
From that break, my name is Wesige Banyaji. The big city is on. Be able to catch us on air and online on www.cruisefm.com/stream and on our social media handles 912 Cruise FM on Twitter, 91.2 Cruise FM on Facebook and Instagram. And we have the visuals on Cruise TV for TikTok and YouTube. We're streaming live, courtesy of Digital Creative Media. And the conversation is on. They have put the question of discussion this morning on the stoppage of importation of powdered milk to Kenya. But generally, we're going to be talking about the economy of the East African countries. And the last we checked, there was a coalition of the wheeling. There was stoppage of certain products into Tanzania from Kenya. The same happened for Uganda. We know during the COVID-19 lockdown, this was still the same, where milk was stopped into entry to Kenya. But we know we import quite a lot from Kenya, being our gate to the sea. And all this has been happening. We know when President Uhuru Kenyatta was elected, his stance was, we shall never stop importation of milk from Uganda. We would rather have it stored here and then converted into powdered milk. And because we know Kenya is a one-season country, Kenya is big-time semi-arid in some parts, so they have a lot of drought and famine. And so they need a lot of our food. We know Kenyan trucks are always here, combing around for maize and our fresh fruits and all that. Is it right in the spirit of East Africa to stop importation of some of our products? To discuss this and much more, I have an economist, Thomas Mo Salita, who is a lecturer at Makerere University Business School. I have the youth East African representative, Mr. Engineer Edgar Mtundisa, Bright Muhumza, coordinator of NUP in Bara, and the regular panelist, Sefa Safi, with me. Let me go to Edgar straight up. Edgar, yes, I want to start with you because I've already seen you all over. You're in Dar es Salaam, you're in Nairobi, and you're advocating. I saw what you posted today, where as people were castigating Ugandans that were wearing Kenyan flags, for you, your antenna was already into issues to do with East Africa. Why not wear Burundi or Kenya, since we are all one and the same? When you heard that Kenya made a communication to ban some of our products to just protect their own interests, what came to your mind?
Yes, of course, I think that was bad, obviously. Because like you mentioned, Ruto has always mentioned it on how they would continuously definitely import the milk products. And not just about what Ruto said, but I think what we need to understand about integration efforts is that integration is premised on sacrifice. That it's a narrative, it's a notion you can only pursue when you understand that you can be able to think of the bigger picture and not just your narrow picture. Because if every country was also adopt the same strategy of saying, let's protect our countries or our people first, then there will never be integration. At the end of the day, you'll find instead all those barriers coming up because everyone wants to protect their citizens. And I think that wouldn't be good. So that premise of sacrifice is important, and it's what actually moves integration forward. So I think anything that is just protectionist is not good, and it's never relevant for an integration agenda. I think that was bad. But also, I also had some people who were so much portraying the fact that maybe East African community as a war as an agenda is now at stake. I don't think that's true. I also wanted to ensure those people, also assure them that also what Kenya is doing is within the rights, actually, also within the law, within the treaty of establishment. It's provided for what we call safeguard measures under Article 78 of the Treaty of Establishment. The only problem there that has to be interrogated is that before those safeguard measures are put into place, there's some protocol, there's some procedure. That is to say, you must first write to the council and through the Secretary General, but also you have to notify the member states if you're going to employ that safeguard measure for your own country. So whether that was done or not, that could be a question on procedure, but also the entire spirit of protectionism is never good for integration. I think that was bad. but also I could assure people that East African community and integration agenda in general is still far progressing, because we remain the fastest growing regional bloc in the world. And so there are also other measures in terms of integration, in security, in peace and security, and many other things happening that truly portray East African and that integration agenda at heart. So I think this is just one element that we can analyze, but the bigger picture of integration is still out there, happening and progressing.
Okay. Let me get to the guest here, who will perhaps speak with more authority without being very political. Protectionism as a tool of economic management, because we know these partner states, each one of them, has its own sovereign interests. Kenya, being the biggest economy in East Africa, wants to retain that supremacy and big boy in terms of the size of the economy is concerned. And we know that unlike Uganda, that has 2 seasons, you have rain quite a lot, and it shines, and a lot of this happens in favor of our own economy. Unlike Kenya, which the northern part of Kenya is very dry. So you find a time where they have to literally import all food that they will have. We know for them, the price of wunga, which is posho, it's a big time national debate. Unlike us here, sugar, we know we export sugar into Kenya. Yes. And all these things, fresh fruits and matoke and all this, it's not as blessed at it as we are here. Now, because they have plenty, at the time, because of the aftermath of the seasons that have favored them, when they say we are not going to import more of your products because we have what's enough for our country, they would look at it as dumping if at all they continue to allow Ugandan products in their economy. How does it counter for our balance of trade within these 2 partner states?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wesiga. I'll begin with a question. Why do we think this business of Kenya banning Ugandan products, especially milk and the agriculture products that we're exporting to Kenya is cropping up? Because it's a bit recent. It has just started. Has Kenya got the 2 seasons recently, or it has been having the seasons all through? So why are they starting to ban our products now? And that leads me to what my colleague here has said. Protectionism is not in the spirit of integration. Integration, by its very definition, is you're trying to you're giving up your personal intentions for the sake of the greater good. Kind of you realize that you can't go alone, you can't achieve whatever you want alone, and therefore you integrate, you come together with your neighbors to achieve growth. So any protectionist tendency is a back step. You're taking backward steps in the process of integration, and this is what Kenya is doing in
If you were the Minister of Trade in Kenya, or the Minister of Finance, or whoever manages the economy of that country,
yes,
and you realize importing certain products from Uganda would disadvantage your own producers or manufacturers, what do you do? Because you have an outcry of domestic producers saying we literally have nowhere to put our products in the shelves because we've been bombarded by Ugandan products. And you're in charge of policy. Wouldn't it be wise enough to say, wait a minute, how about Kenya Kwanza? How about Kenya first before we think about Uganda and the rest of the countries in the East Africa?
That's a very good question. What that calls for is deeper integration. What this impasse is revealing to us is that as East African countries, we are engaging in integration, but it looks like we are not ready to go full scale. We are putting one foot ahead, and then take 1 step ahead and then take 2 steps backwards. We need to go full scale into integration to solve the current impasse. The East African countries need to to go into deeper agreements on issues like production or the industrial policy. Currently, we don't have an industrial policy for East Africa. Each country has its own industrial policy. Industrial policy deals with highlights and regulates and streamlines production lines for each country. So if you have each country having its own industrial policy, then it means definitely they are going to clash. Whenever countries engage in integration, maybe I should take first to explain what integration is, because our listeners may need to understand what integration is. Integration at the national level means that countries remove trade barriers. Trade barriers are both in terms of taxes or tariffs and non-tariff barriers. So that is where it starts from, that we agree, Uganda and Kenya, to allow our traders to sell commodities, that Kenyans can bring their products here and Ugandans can take their products to Kenya.
That also relates to service, where a Ugandan professional can freely go and practice in Kenya.
Exactly.
And the same is correct.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Thomas. Let me allow Bright at this point. Bright, when we backtrack, there was a narrative that was, propagated by Tanzania, where it says, for us, it's about the coalition of the willing, where the rest of East Africa was following something that we think that was strategic for them. Tanzania held back, saying, well, that is not within the interests of Tanzania as a republic. And Tanzania has always been very categorical on some of these things, while other countries are very fast and fast-tracking some of these agreements in the East Africa. And the standard gauge railway and so many other things. Tanzania says, wait a minute, for us, we are thinking about what is good for Tanzania before what we think about the East African community. When you hear about the banning of some of the Ugandan products into the Kenyan market, and perhaps reflecting on the promises of President Ruto coming into this term of office, where he said he will concentrate on the wananchi, the Kenyan people, to make sure they are uplifted, and the campaign was rolled out on the bottom up, encouraging local producers and manufacturers. When you hear them stopping Ugandan products in the interests of local producers, don't you think it's the right step to do?
Mr. Bajaji, for correction, the Bishop-elect of North Kivu Diocese is Onesimus Asimwe.
Yes.
And is going to be enthroned tomorrow.
Okay.
At the diocese headquarters in Rukunjiri. But you have to know, Mr. Banyaji, that the issues of integration, of East African integration, are artificial. They are cosmetic. They are not real. They are intended to either get funding from European Union, or I have never understood the mission of its establishment, because President Museveni himself has always said the word bubu. Bubu means buy Uganda,
build Uganda.
Build Uganda. Yet you are saying that we should go for East African integration. The other time, Rwanda crossed our borders for 2 years almost. But East African integration meetings, East African community was going on. They were pretending that it was going on smoothly. We have been in court with Congo. You know that. We have been paying costs for routing, for going to illegally entering Congo, routing their gold, routing their minerals, routing their timber, and you know that we are paying for that action. You also know that the confusion you see in Southern Sudan now, largely Uganda has had a hand in what is happening in Southern Sudan. In Burundi, you know what happened there when somebody attempted to overthrow government. It was UPDF that went there to claim supremacy and they claim to have restored the order. You know, you have always followed what has been happening because it's not the first time Ugandan products are blocked from entering Kenya. But now what the history of all this? Because Uganda, if you're saying buy Uganda, build Uganda. But for you, if they say buy Kenya, assuming that now Kenya has said buy Kenyan products to build to build Kenya, why would you cry for when you are the one who started it? I can tell you that President Museveni thinks he can always confuse the others, and he believes that people cannot easily understand him. But people understand him. They know that his mission could be on collapsing other economies. President Museveni is a selfish man on this block. I can tell you, out of 6 or 7 now, I think 6 state members of East African community, it is only Uganda with very little, if I think they could not be there, very little foreign reserves. They have eaten everything. You saw, you had that time the president of Tanzania was saying that their foreign currency, foreign reserves, can take Tanzania for more than 6 months. Yet Uganda cannot sustain us for even 2 days. It is not possible. No, a country which doesn't have any foreign reserve anywhere, let it be in gold, let it be in foreign currency, it doesn't have anything anywhere in the whole world. And you're saying that any competent country like Kenya or Tanzania can allow to integrate with you and have the same currency with you, have the same borders with you. It is not possible. I can tell you, Mr. Banyaji, that if we want this integration to be genuine, to be real, let's solve the issue of democracy and politics first. Because if I don't agree with you politically, there is no way I can agree with you economically. I can never share the same currency with you because we don't agree politically. I will never share the same borders with you because we don't agree politically. I suspect you, you suspect me, you suspect. If you suspect before me, really, how would I trust you? The truth of the matter is, Uganda is not trusted by any of the East African member states.
Yes.
And more issues, more problems are coming. If you went to Tanzania to bring rice here, it is as if you have guns. You must bring it at midnight. Just rice planted at Tanzania here. To bring it to Uganda, it's as if you have weapons of mass destruction. They can check you, and if it is not past midnight, you can't bring rice.
Okay,
rice planted here in Tanzania, and you talk of East African cooperation. And if Kenyans try to block your milk, you start crying here. If you go to Tanzania, there is a product called it's a juice, it's a mango juice. You can't bring it here in Uganda. Ugandan authorities cannot allow it to enter here. It comes, but at a high tax. And what the reason Uganda gives is that they are protecting their industries.
Okay.
Now, if you are protecting your home industries, and Kenya has tried to say, let's protect ours also, where do you go on TV and radios and start crying for?
Let me get to Sifa Safi. Thank you, Brian. Sifa, let me pick it from where Brian just stopped it. Is the whole integration cosmetic and just for show? And there is nothing beneficial that Ugandans can write home about? Is it something that we think we should even contemplate doing away with? We have a whole East African Legislative Assembly that sits at Arusha. And by the time they pass, Kenyans are confident to actually go ahead and initiate such a policy without the the Yala sitting to debate about this kind of policy. Perhaps literally every country is able to override some of these arrangements and What do we do? Because if each country can do anything that they can do at their own whim, then what is the East African Legislative Assembly all about? Sifa.
Thank you, Banyaji, and thank you, my colleagues, for your submissions. I want to disagree with my friend Bright that it is entirely cosmetic. There are certain things that are realistic, and we all know that. We have at least taken a step ahead to actualize the East African integration. But on the other hand, there are certain things that need to be fixed, Banyaji, because it's not going to stop at writing things in the books and we don't put them into, reality and practice them for the good of East Africans. For example, the issue of we are talking about milk and economies generally. It's not the first time, we all know that. In 2019? Exactly. They came out, and I think that time round, they said one of the reasons was, actually the major reason I remember was that the milk is not up to the standards they want. It was, and all that. Remember the issue of maize. They said this
it has aflatoxins.
Exactly. That they wanted to protect their people in Kenya, their lives. And for me, during that time, I was thinking, yes, at least this government is serious in terms of protecting their citizens, because we need standards here and there. But this time round, the excuses they are giving, that they are trying to protect, the industry there from surplus and all that. But I'm wondering, even if Uganda exported milk, all the milk we produce in Uganda, even if we decided to export it to Kenya, would they really have a surplus of milk in Kenya? Because people need to take this milk, and at one point we are told they wanted to supply this milk in schools and all that. So to me, that is an excuse, a scapegoat. And some people are saying it's not going to be, it's not going to stop at being economic, but we might see some other political issues coming in. And I think I concur with such people and such thinking. Because if you start telling us of the surplus, and actually the dairy production, whatever agency there was saying, they're going to sit, look back, analyze and advise government accordingly. So in other words, they're very sure and they know that they cannot have surplus of milk in that country. So we are saying there some hidden agenda in this issue of milk, because it is just hardly a year when President Ruto came out and said the issues of protectionism should be things of the past, and they're allowing agricultural products of Uganda to be imported into Kenya. And hardly after, I think 2 months or 3 months, they are down the road and they're saying we are banning importation of milk from Uganda. So to me, it is deeper than we think. And this is why I call upon the people responsible in this particular field to come out and you do a thorough check, and investigate and research and see what exactly is happening. Because it doesn't stop at that milk, you are saying. For example, Banyaji, after the invasion of Ukraine, of Russia into Ukraine, we globally there was a setback. Things went bad, all economies globally and otherwise. So people are trying to recover. Uganda's dairy industry is one of the, I think they are bringing in, they said 358 billion shillings in the past 4 years. That is quite a lot of money. And you're saying you're banning milk from Uganda into Kenya without even a genuine reason, like I said. What does this mean? I saw a farmer from... is it one of the districts? Is it Zimbabwe or where? He was saying that his children might not go back to school because all the school fees he gets is from the milk he sells, fresh milk. So that is one person. We are seeing a lot of people, Ugandans, being employed under this particular industry, especially the youth. Remember, East African community is one of those communities or one of those integrations where we have a youthful population. What does it mean? We're going to see a lot of redundant youth around, and this comes along with other things like crime, name it. So for me, they should sit back before things escalate. They should sit as Kenya and Uganda and find a solution to this. But some people are suggesting that we should have milk producers, protesting on the borders of Kenya because of what happened. But actually, according to the executive director of Madam Sarah Kajingu, she was saying that for her, talking one-on-one would be the solution. And I think this is right. Because actually, some people are trying to connect this to the tweets that one person that I'm not going to mention here, the tweets about Kenya. But I think this is not connected at all. Issues of the tweets and whatever. This is just, I don't know what is happening. But I think I trust our leaders. They should sit back, Banyaji, and talk about this. Because within this short period of time, people are lamenting of what is going to happen. People do not know. Some of these investors have put in loans, money from banks and wherever. But what some people are wondering about is, we have investors from Kenya, who are investing into the dairy industry. For example, Brookside. It's a Kenyan thing. And we are saying if you don't want milk from Uganda and you have your investors from your country doing the same in Uganda, what is going to happen? Where are they going to take the milk that they're producing here in this country? So I think they made a decision without first, thinking about what is going to happen to the economies, first of all, but also to the integration agenda, and second and thirdly, to the issues of the populations, both in Uganda and Kenya. So it is not about sitting in your country and you make a decision. You have to think about what is going to happen, because like my friend said, it's not about sacrifice. And someone was saying, Mr. Walugembe, that you're not going to keep sacrificing on behalf of the other East African community member states. So I think, before you make a decision, first of all, think, Banyaji, if you're a leader somewhere, somehow, you don't sit and make a decision as an individual. You have to consider other things, economic, social, but most of all, importantly, political. You should see that much as we are banning milk from Uganda, giving things like surplus and whatever, what may happen in terms of integration politically. So for me...
It's important that we let the listener and viewer know that Kenya is majorly banning the powdered milk.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And you should remember, Banyaji, that as we speak, we have a lot of powdered milk in Uganda. So what do they expect us to take it? And yet people are targeting one of the markets is Kenya. And they're giving, like I told you, because for us, as far as I know, this powdered milk can go as long as I don't know how many years. So you can buy and stock if you want.
But let me, let's be realistic now. The consumption per capita in Uganda of milk is actually still very low. We have children in Karamoja that need this milk but cannot access it. Karamoja is literally semi-arid. And we have across the country, the children consumption of milk per child is very small. How about we have a government that is able, like how the late President Arap Moi did in Kenya, milk ya Nyayo, maziwa ya Nyayo, whatever, and give children free milk across the country. Because if we say we have excess milk as a country, why are we feeling frustrated about Kenya that we badly wanted to buy our milk when the Ugandans cannot consume this same milk?
Exactly, let me conclude before I give other people a chance.
Please.
That is one thing that government should think about. Our planners, they should think ahead, like Avo said. Before you start crying that your milk is in surplus and milk has been banned from entering into Kenya. What about these children that are, starving, that are malnourished, that are looking like as if, I don't know what. So there should be a plan to ensure that before we start looking for markets outside the country, we should satisfy our own demand.
Okay. Thank you.
For me,
yes.
I don't know if that is under the education ministry. I don't know if it is under the gender ministry, but this is something that should be looked at as a short-term plan.
But if President Museveni recently, just in Zanga here, he said that schools have no business feeding children. That is a responsibility of parents. And the parents are sleeping. And some of these parents literally earn so meager that they cannot even provide the basics for their children. How about even buying milk for the toddlers? It's literally impossible. Yes, I'm going to come to you, Edgar.
Somebody who can appear on this radio and say that this powdered milk, which has been stopped from entering Kenya, we can strategize and see how we can always give it to our dying kids of Karamoja, our children in UPE schools. Really, that is daydreaming. We cannot even afford to give them 1 cup of portion of porridge, of hunger, of money.
Yeah.
We have no capacity to give just 1 cup of porridge to our these dying young children of ours. And you are suggesting that we give them powdered milk, even when they cannot even access this ordinary milk. It is hard. How many times has the Minister of Education promised us feeding children at school,
helping the younger girl children?
Yes, they can't. They have no capacity to give them our young girl children, to give them sanitary pads.
Yeah.
Sanitary pads. Girls are dropping out of school because of that. And you are thinking of giving them powdered milk, which I don't even consume it at my home.
Edgar.
Yes, I think this discussion has been very good, especially I think Madam Sifa's submission was really nice, instrumental. However, the one of Mr. Muhumza surely was just one that is just funny. It's all lies and everything, but also it's majorly based because I think it's ignorant on what is happening in the E.A.C.
Because, give it to us.
Yeah, and I'll give it to you. Very easy, very easy. So for instance, now I will start with the first issue on how the Karamoja people, we have milk here, and why don't we just give it to other people? The assumption with that question is that in Kenya everything is fine. You should visit Kenya. It's for a fact we have far better milk than Kenyans. And in fact, the issue here is not just about surplus. The issue is that our milk products outcompete Kenya's milk products within Kenya because our milk is of far better quality. But as if you've gone to Kenya, if you've taken any milk from that restaurants, you can tell. Even the biggest restaurants there, even Serena in Nairobi, its milk is poor. I can't take it here in Barara. So the whole point is that we have actually far better quality milk. And at that same question and all those lamentations you're making, the same lamentations could go to the government of Kenya. Instead of complaining that you're having so much surplus, why don't you take your milk and make it cheaper for Kenyans themselves? Right? So it's not just a question of just Uganda and saying, why don't you take it? Even Kenyans don't have that much enough milk. Unless you want to assume that Kenyans have so much, and that's why they shouldn't accept more. They themselves are lacking it. So this same argument of the government taking it, it would apply that why doesn't Kenya take that same milk which is in surplus and give it to people in Masai and people in those parts of Tharaka-Nithi and etc.
But that's their business.
Exactly.
Our business here that we are concerned about, Uganda has a lot of milk and our domestic consumption is very little. And we know our children are starving to death.
And
we have government that superintends the affairs of this nation.
Not really. And the argument I'm making is that the issue of milk is not about us having enough. That's not a question. The question here, like I say, the question here is more about the policy and whether that was a legitimate action to take. Because Kenya itself has not that much surplus milk. That's a lie. That they do not need. Themselves, they do need that milk.
Then the protectionist policies,
exactly.
What is it meant to do? Is it empty? It must be founded.
Now, we can analyze that one later. As we say, there could be many reasons, some could be political. But before that, I wanted to first come to many lies that this guy makes here. Especially on the foreign
in a minute before we stop it for a
on
break.
the foreign reserves and etc. Kenya, which has, I think, the highest foreign reserves after Burundi, has 6.6 billion in foreign reserves. Uganda has $4.5 billion in foreign reserves. So there could be a gap, but it's not as this guy makes it, as if we don't have any foreign reserves and we're poor and etc. and so we cannot have integration. But beyond that, you must understand integration is on 4 pillars. For all these past years, we've been working on customs union, we've been working on common market protocol, which have been delivered before we can come into monetary union and then later on the political federation. So if you look at the progress we've made just in terms of tariffs that have been cut so low from almost 47% now 25%. Come on, guys. I didn't say there's nothing happening. Listen, first wait, right. First listen. No, you had your time. First listen. You need to learn, first listen. So there is also more. There are no lies. Listen. There are IDs, right? You know for sure today you can travel from one country to another with just a national ID. No need for passport, no need for anything. We just have one stop at border points that you couldn't employ in the last period. Because in the last period, if you're exporting like tomatoes, they would get thrown on the way.
Let's stop for a break. We'll be right back. Good morning.
It's tough. It's bold. It's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
If you can't beat us, join us.
Western Uganda's biggest radio.
91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
Sample that. My name is DJ Kapale. I used to DJ only at weddings, but now using MTN, I get the exposure I need to take my hustle to the next level. Sample that. Sin. Now I DJ at many other ceremonies in Uganda. Kwanjulas, office party.
Creative Digital Media, creating with you. Creative Digital Media.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed managing a school, keeping track of attendance, grades, and reports? Introducing MavPress. With this innovative software, you can keep all your school's information in one place. Accessible from anywhere at any time. Whether it's about tracking attendance, grading, or students' performance, MavPress makes it easy for you to stay on top of it all. Get started with MavPress School Management System today. MavPress, simplifying school management.
Creative Digital Media. Creating with you. Creative Digital Media.
Tough, it's bold, it's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
Welcome back. It's a minute past 10 o'clock here on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music. Good friends. My name is Westige Banyaji. We are on air and online on www.cruisefm.com/stream. And the visuals are very crystal clear on CROOZE TV for YouTube and TikTok. Courtesy of Creative Digital Media. That's doing us very good service there. And I want to appreciate all of you that are on YouTube, viewing us very well. Let me get you very closely. Musinguzi Joseph. And you're thanking us for the show. You're listening in from Mazima MM Clinic in Kazo District. I appreciate you, sir. Musmenta John Francis, you're streaming live from Bwizibwera Town. Thank you. Clavans Katsabe, you're listening in from, and you're thanking your dear lecturer, Thomas Salis, who is here with us this morning. Muishichi Alosias in Butare, Chamhunga. I appreciate you. Those that are appreciating the lecturer here, I can see the very many students are listening in and viewing closely. We appreciate you very much. And you're saying, what a wise man Bright is. You are right. Museveni is selfish. Why does he want Bubu and want other countries to feel they're not allowed to do this to their countries? Then Baram's UG, you're listening in from Cham Gorani. Thank you, Baram. Omara Alfred, you're saying good morning. Sifa Safi, who owns Brookside, if she knows where the problem is coming in. And for the couple of you that are listening again online and also viewing via CROOZE TV, we much have respect for you. Later on, I'll give you an opportunity to join the conversation on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. On our social media handles, Twitter, a couple of messages that are coming in. I'll get to some of that so that I get to see what you're dropping on there. And I want to say thank you. Please keep the messages coming and the conversation going on. And let me get some of your remarks right here. Nuagaba Joseph, you're listening in from Town School. You're following. Thank you. Sime Roy Derek, you're saying, I think they are right, because every man for himself and God for us all, because it's how Uganda does its things. Let them feel the reciprocation. Then Professor, you're saying these international trade wars between Uganda and Kenya had ended some time back. I don't know why they are rising again, but I think it's all about improving quality of our exports to increase market base, to avoid the dependence of a few market partners in Kenya. Thank you. Mugabe Mahad, you're thinking yes, and you're saying, I hope Kenya and Uganda united by East African community. Then how come she has refused the importation of powdered milk since they are united? I think East African community should sit and be able to sort this out. Kalande Valeriano, you're saying they should do this through negotiation. Morris Nyongesa, you're listening again. I want to thank you. Dumbuze Nathan, you're saying, but I think we haven't reached the level of exporting what we can provide for our citizens. Thomas De Rock, you're saying, I think Kenya is trying to protect its home industries. There's no problem with that. Perhaps to give you some statistics, how much does Uganda actually import from Kenya, so that we get to understand? For the record, by 2020, Uganda exported to Kenya to a tune of $465 million. And majorly what we export to Kenya: coffee, tea, spices, dairy products, eggs, honey, edible products, cereals, sugar confectionaries, mineral fuels, and a couple of other things, beverages, spirits and winery, cotton, furniture. We export quite a lot. But the balance of trade is quite big, because Kenya actually exports more than we do, to a tune of about $831 million as per the data collection of 2021. And majorly what Kenya exports to Uganda is quite a lot, because everything that you see in your house is literally from Kenya. From salt, sulfur, animal, vegetable fats, and leveraged products, iron and steel, machinery, nuclear reactors, boilers, plastics, and some pharmaceutical products, fertilizers, electrical equipment. There's quite a lot. The balance of payment is widespread. Now, I want to appreciate you. Please keep the conversation going on. And the lifeline of the show, 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. Call in right now, and let's get to catch up a little bit. Let me get your feedback from what you think about the ban of powdered milk into Kenya by their dairy board. The big set. We just lost that. 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. The big set. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, what's your name and where are you calling us from?
Singo Marshall Nyawongo from Songora Mhoche, Songora South Cafe.
Yes, yes, Songora.
Now, Banyaji.
Yes, please.
For me, what I wanted to tell you is, let the President of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, leave alone that thing of build Uganda, whatever. Because we all...
You lost that point right there. The big set.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Vanyanji Madilu Hima.
Yes, Madilu ni aje?
Poa sana, niko mzima.
I know Madilu, you know these things very well. When you're in Uganda here and you hear Kenya banning some of our products, what comes to your mind? Tuambie.
Sasa, mimi naona hiyo maziwa ya unga hiyo. Hao watu walikuwa ni watapeli wenye walizuia maziwa kutoka Uganda kuenda Kenya. Kweli maziwa Kenya hakuna kabisa. Na kama hiyo wanaweza kufanya community ya Uganda ipeleke maziwa ya unga Kenya, ni vizuri sana, wanasaidia wananchi wa chini. Na kama hao hapana nataka kusaidia wananchi ya chini, Sasa maziwa hakuna ndani ya Kenya, sisi wananchi ya chini ndio wanaumia sana. Sasa mimi naomba serikali ya Kenya naye iwachilie Uganda ipeleke vitu Kenya, na Kenya ilete vitu zao huku. So wanabadilishana pesa, hiyo ni dola, wanafaidisha, kila government inafaidisha ingine kwa vingine, si ati inafanya shortcut. Hiyo ndio yangu tu kutoka hapa Hima, na mimi nafurahia sana Vanyanji kwa hiyo maneno. Hiyo ni maneno mzuri sana katika kwa CROOZE FM.
Asante sana Madilu.
Asante.
That's Madilu there, ardent listener of the big set. Good contribution. Let me get to Facebook. Fabio Felix, you're saying East Africa was created to allow easy movement of goods and people across the borders of member states, not forgetting promoting the community and regional trade. I think the best way for each of the countries protecting its interests without hindering trade is by respecting the objectives of the E.A.C, like a few that listed above, regardless of what is between the two countries. And you're listening again from Nyakizi Kakoba. Thank you so much, Fabio Felix, for choosing to listen in, and your contribution is noted. Musingus Onesimus, you're saying, I think that there's a problem. Some of these countries becoming overambitious, leaving out the goals set by the inter-trade unions, and this may end up leading to the collapse of those trade unions due to the fact that we are going to see some countries doing an exit from the inter-trade due to the failure to benefit from it. And you're listening again from Ankole Institute in Wizwera, Masharuka, in Shema. Thank you, sir. Then Felix Feli, you're thanking us for the show, and you're saying the problem with Uganda is that Ugandans prefer imported goods to Ugandan made. Uganda should first sensitize the people to buy and like our own goods, other than crying about importing to Kenya and other countries. We should first consume these internally. Gaddafi is saying these two countries should sit and agree on common interests of trade. If not, both countries are going to be hit by economic crisis. Take a look. Kenya has very many companies operating here in Uganda. But why don't they each time torture us in our exports to them? I think Kenya has hidden issues as to why each and every time they limit our exports to them. Thank you. Benny Cruz, I see you. You're listening again from Kampala, Uganda. I appreciate you so much. Bamwine Lawrence, you're saying, I think Uganda is forcing others to appreciate the benefits of having collective markets. It's better we plan on how to improve our local markets before we go for foreign markets. Let me end with Seguya Peterson on Facebook, and they're saying, what if Kenya has a lot of milk at home? And which trade war can this crappy landlocked state throw at us? I thank you so much for joining the conversation and giving us very good feedback. It gives us very good background to start the conversation here again. Let me hit it back to the panel. Let me go to Mr. Thomas Moore, Salita, lecturer at MOBS here. You just heard from the feedback.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Wesige. I'm going to give an economic kind of background to this problem. Yes, it could have political connotations. It could have, it obviously has business connotations to it. But from the economics point of view, this is a structural problem. When I say structure, the way our economies are structured, are formed, that there's nothing Kenya produces that Uganda cannot produce. Okay. So if we engage in an integration, then we are going to be selling each other commodities that we both can produce. You see that? So that creates, definitely when we do that, we are setting our local producers on a collision course, if I may call it.
Yes.
We have milk producers in Uganda, we have milk producers in Kenya. So when you integrate, it means you're making these two producers or farmers to compete for that market. Now, if our economies are structured in that form, then it means the solution to these trade wars is not a mere sit on a table and talk kind of solution. It should be a deeper an intention to go deeper into integration by setting up an industrial policy that is going to streamline how each country within the integration produces.
For example, let me give it to you, my land colleague. Kenya complained about we were exporting sugar into
Yes.
Kenya.
Yes.
Big volumes because their own mumias had literally collapsed. And Kenyan people came out and complained that, wait a minute, we are allowing Uganda to export sugar here, but they're importing it from Brazil and Pakistan, repackaging it and bring it to Kenya at a lower tariff.
You see that?
You see, and Uganda just never stops doing some things that are very shady.
Exactly. The way we approach integration as the East African countries, we are still on the top of the integration. We haven't gone into deeper integration to actually ask ourselves, what are we integrating? When we remove barriers to trade, what exactly are we trying to do? You get it? So we need to come up with an industrial policy, a streamlining of how we produce. What commodities should Uganda produce and then sell into Kenya, and what commodities should Kenya produce and sell into Uganda? You get it? If such a policy or an arrangement is not made, we shall continue clashing. I saw right now on Twitter, I think the president today has gone to Algeria. I suspect that one of the things that he's going to talk about or to streamline is to try to get a new market for Uganda.
Perhaps that would be a better strategy.
Yes, but he's just running away from the problem. You get it? Yes, you may open up a new market in Algeria, but that's not the way to. It is part of this. It can be part of the solution, but it's not full.
Okay.
You get it?
We know very well that there was a time South Sudan was our biggest market. Literally, I don't know how many Ugandans are still in Juba, but the number is tremendously reduced. And we opened a new market in the Congo. That's why we're building roads there, and we are making sure that Eastern Congo is more stable, because we know that we are focusing on that market.
Both of those countries are troubled countries.
Yes.
South Sudan and Congo. So focusing on them is not a short-term solution. By the time Congo will stabilize, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, what will be happening to the milk producer in Uganda? Where will they be selling?
Okay. Let me place a question to Edgar. Did you want to perhaps compliment? But my question is, the local producers here, they've been given market. We remember the Gulf wanted goats. Big volumes of goats. Uganda was given an opportunity to supply those goats. And they were very particular on the weight, the DNA of the goats and the color and everything. Uganda literally could not measure up. They could not provide these goats. And before we knew it, that market was hit a dead end. As Ugandans, as producers, especially these gentlemen that are in business, how are you ready for what you really want from the international market? Even if Kenya gave you an opportunity to really supply, are you able to meet their demand?
Uganda is milking a cow without feeding it. The leaders in Uganda spend more time, more resources, more money on politics than production. Our resources, our taxes are spent on non-productive ventures. There is no strategic program by this government of President Museveni to help us and other people who are trying to start up businesses. In Kenya, they have tax incentives to their producers.
The same applies to Uganda. We know there is a 10-year tax holiday for people that have about $5 million investment.
Yes, but now how do you reach there? So for me, I want to tell you that this is not a context of words. We should be real to the listeners and tell them exactly what is happening on the ground. Because we have not come here for university lectures. This is not an academic interview. We are talking about what exactly is happening on the ground.
Tell it to us.
We are saying that it is not easy for you to import something that is grown in Kenya just grown through, just as in its raw form, no value added. To bring it from Kenya to Uganda, you must pay heavily on taxes. To bring it from Kenya, from Tanzania to Uganda, it is a problem.
But at least there is harmonized. I think there is a harmonized tax rate.
I am telling you that people in Uganda, in Barra here, I can tell you now, if you had an opportunity to meet the Minister for Trade,
who is our very own
Mr.
Honorable
Francis
Mwebesa here,
people who meet him ask him for a license, for a license to bring rice here. So you find his office is filled up because people want trading licenses to give them taxi opportunities. It is not structured. It is who knows him. In Uganda, if you try to go to any country, let it be Rwanda, let it be Tanzania, if you go, for example, to Congo, apart from Rwanda, you go to Congo and you try to import palm oil. Palm oil is a raw material. It is a raw material to use in making soap. But if you try to bring it in Uganda, you look at how much tax you pay. So I don't want Uganda to cry for own sins committed, because for them they think everybody is just there sleeping. You are imposing restrictions internally. Uganda is putting it is called protection policies for their industries. For them, they don't want any other country to impose one. This boy who says that
who is a boy here?
Boy.
No, respect my guests.
That's
not right. Put it right. Make a correction to that matter. This is a fully fledged engineer, my friend, and a leader in the East African community.
That younger engineer.
No. Let's just stop right now for a break. We'll be right back.
If she's a good girl, give her Western Uganda's biggest radio. Yeah. 91.2 CROOZE FM. The Big Seat on 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
It's beautiful here when we sit as very intelligent minds to talk about issues that concern all of us. My name is Wesi Gebanyaji. If I told you started with us from 9 a.m. when we started up to where we are at, I want to appreciate you. But if I told you listening in for the very first time, the Big Sit happens every Saturday from 9 to 11. We talk about issues to do with the politics, the economy, and the social affairs of our country. And with me in studio is Bright Muhum's very controversial. I hope I hope you don't represent the traits within the NUP. He coordinates the affairs of NUP here in Mbarara. But I have very learned people in studio with me, Engineer Edgar Mutunjisa, who is an authority on the issues of the East African community. I have my fellow land colleague, the economist Thomas Mo Salita, and our voice of reason, Sifa Safi. Let's calm down. I'm the moderator of this show and I'm fully in charge. Now let me have Sifa, since the men, the egos are clashing, to have her way. Sifa Safi. No wonder the International Women's Day is a wake-up call for all of us to accommodate more women in some of these conversations, because perhaps they bring a more calmer and a more humbling, spice to it. Sifa, issues of East Africa, you've heard the men talking about how useless it is. It's taking us nowhere for as long as President Museveni is still managing the affairs of Uganda. He will bully his colleagues all over the place. You see them during the elections. They are all literally doing a pilgrimage here in Uganda to have courtesy with President Museveni. And, we heard about the crude oil that the European Union was demonstrating about and made a resolution about. Move from Lamu to here in Dar es Salaam now, I think, in Tanzania. And so much has happened. We know what happened in Burundi. There was a time Rwanda closed its borders with Burundi because Burundi wasn't acting about the insurgents that were coming from the Congo. We know what happened in Uganda as regards to that border closure with Rwanda. And all this that is happening. Now we have and East Africa, where some of these protocols allow for free movement of labor. Ugandan hotels are literally managed by 80% Kenyans. You get how many Ugandans are employed in any of those other capitals? If we did an audit, perhaps there is very few of them. Is it a problem with the education system that we are not employable? I want to hear of how many corporations or multinationals that are managed by Ugandans in all the other East African partner states. Sifa.
Thank you, Banyaji. But before I go there, let me start it off with an issue of sugar. You talked about sugar. Uganda importing sugar from other countries, repackaging it and taking it to Kenya. Disguising as the producers. That is wrong, and it is totally wrong, even within the free trade area and whatever. But I want to talk about the issue of milk, for example. They're very sure that milk is being produced here. So why should they bring up these other issues, trying to, bar that milk from being exported to Kenya and all that. So like I said, and like some other people are saying, maybe there is some hidden agenda that we don't know. But Banyaji, this is an automatic trade war between the two countries, which is really not good. And like I said, the earlier they sort it out, the better. And that is where I call upon our leaders not to be timid. Speaking about this particular issue, it is an issue of national, it is a matter of national importance. So for me, now parliamentarians should come up instead of wasting time on unnecessary and less important things.
But we fund the East African Legislative Assembly. Why should we have the Ugandan Parliament contemplate and debate this when we have representatives?
When you're counting sand, you start from where you're standing.
Yes.
Before we go to the assembly and whatever, because that involves Kenya, which is the culprit in this case, we should first do it as a country.
Okay.
Because I'm saying it affects ordinary Ugandans. I told you about employment, school fees and whatever. So, but another thing, Banya, that I want to talk about is that at one point in Kenya, some people had suggested that they should, there should be a 16% levy on milk from Uganda, because they were saying when it enters Kenya, it is cheaper than the milk being produced in Kenya. So they wanted to, impose this levy so that the milk from Uganda can be expensive in their market. Actually, this is something that the president then, His Excellency Uhuru, he refused to accept this, and he turned it down. And before we knew it, after that proposal was came up in 2020, that is where this ban on milk, Uganda's milk and other imports exports. That is why we saw this ban. So what I'm saying is, it's not just about milk, Banyaji. It is a general problem, and like I said, there might be some other things that we don't know, not necessarily business, but political and otherwise. However, I want to talk about, comment on the issue of Mr. Madilu. Asanteni sana kwa kusikiliza, na umetuambia kwamba hakuna maziwa in Kenya. And like we have all said, there is no surplus of milk in Kenya. This is just a scapegoat, like we said. He says there is not enough milk, that they should ban milk from Uganda, saying that the markets are going to flood with milk. That is a lie. And like you said, tungekuwa tunafanya kazi pamoja kama majirani, kwa sababu jirani akiwa mzuri anakuwa better than a friend. So for me, it is better to have a neighbor. It is not just in politics, but we need each other, Banyaji, at any one point. And like I told you, it is time now that we should be looking at a common market as East Africa and later on as a continent, so that we can have a bargaining power, as a continent when our products go to the foreign markets. But we are starting to split onto these small things. So for me, they made this decision in haste as a government. So they should sit down and see what to do. And like we said, we have people who are really interested in going to talk with Kenya. But what I'm saying, every other now and then you are going to come up with decisions, and you want our people to kneel down for you because there should be things that are beyond this. You can do better than this.
Perhaps before I move on to Edgar and Thomas here,
yes,
what is the problem with Ugandans consuming this milk? Sifa, let me hear from you. The government that you believe in so much, how about they just chose to give this milk to our young children in UPE schools? Perhaps it would be consumed that we don't need to export it.
Yes, that would be very good, like I said. But I want to tell you, Banyaji, I don't know whether it was necessary for you to say that I believe in this government so much. Yes, I do. But that doesn't mean that there are no wrongs and that there are no things that need to be fixed. For example, like my friend here said, you're talking of giving milk to these people, but you cannot even give an exercise book. Because I've said here before that you shouldn't take it for granted that every child can afford to buy an exercise book. And later on, whatever other things, and name it. Okay. So for me, Banyaji, if you have a school where girls share toilets with boys, then how do you start talking of milk being given to children? So this is something that would be very good, but it needs a lot of thinking.
Thank you,
people
Sifa.
to plan for this country. But finally,
yes,
I want to tell you, Banyaji, that some of these things should be actualized, like my friend said. We have a lot of things in plan, we have a lot of things on paper, but there is a lot that lacks. If you're going to sit as a country and you think that you can close the border without giving reasons here and there, as a country, wake up one night and leaders say we are closing this border, that is totally dangerous. And on the other hand, you're going to wake up one night and you say we don't want food, beans, for example, from Uganda, when you have no reason, genuine reason, then that means you're going to pile up these things, and at the end of the day, what comes out might not be good. Okay. But finally, I want to disagree with my friend again. You're saying that every other country in the East African community mistrusts Uganda, and Uganda is seen as something and is a suspect. But like you said, we have seen other conflicts between two other countries. There is a point where Kenya was fighting with Tanzania over grazing land. We've seen Rwanda with other countries like Congo. So it's not about Uganda specifically, but generally it is something that should be sorted.
After all, we are able to export peace to some of these countries. On CROOZE TV, YouTube, courtesy of Creative Digital Media, I see Tudyave Praise, who is listening again from Saudi Arabia. You're viewing actually from Saudi. We want to appreciate you so much. Now, Manya Kenneth, you're viewing from Baguta Street. I want to thank you so much. I Nembabazi Roads, you're watching from Moobs Kamkuzi, and the lecturer is in here. Victor Nahamya, you're saying Mr. Mtundisa is an intelligent man. Let Bright learn how to respect fellow panelists. I think let's pass it on to Bright. But he's a very good contributor here, Bright Muhumza, with us here. Mugabe Mahad, Kamukama, you're watching from Kabale University. Thank you so much for every person that has viewing via CROOZE TV. We appreciate you. Digital Creative Media is doing a good job right there. Mtundisa.
Okay, so I'll take you just through two things first.
Yes.
International law, secondly, communism. Now, you need to understand this issue from a deeper perspective. Now, the reason I do understand this issue of just countries waking up one morning, closing their borders, is really unfortunate. But unfortunately, as you know, in issues of international law, international community, sovereign law, sovereignty is more given to those independent partner states. And majorly, these integration agendas are so much based on the goodwill of the leaders. That's one fact, it's one fragile thing about this integration, and that's where the whole issue starts. But secondly, now on the issue of why don't we, as Ugandan, for instance, have this milk take it to schools, that would be a nice strategy, perhaps, if you look at it into the angle of communism. But again, that would be like communism. for you to just now have these resources and now you have them and then take them maybe at a cheaper price, even for free. But the whole point is that you will be now not competing in the capitalistic world with other countries where you're supposed to also export something, and that would be economically not a right strategy.
It will deny us the dollars that come from those countries.
Exactly, from those countries. And yet, like we mentioned, even the fellow from Kenya also told you, in Kenya, they themselves don't have the milk that they have excess. So it's a problem everywhere in terms of nutrition and etc. Now, when we put that aside, let's come to the other political lies that were happening in this debate, because it's very important we sort them out. Now, the issue of Uganda being a suspect everywhere, like I told you, many of these issues are analyzed, especially and politicized by people because they're ignorant about them. Now, you need to understand, for instance, the issue of peace and security. I was seeing the other time when even the parliament was complaining that how come Uganda is always in other countries, etc. The same army and the same UPDF that we are this person from NUP thinks is bad and not trusted is the same army guarding a full president of Equatorial Guinea. Do you know what it means to have a country's president guarded by another country's army? You know the level of trust or level of convincing you must have or to be trusted to that extent. I won't go into the area of that. But the whole point is just to analyze for people out there. The reason that's why, for instance, Uganda is able to engage in wars outside and perhaps produce peace is because definitely when one country, Al-Shabaab's interest in Kenya is the same interest in Uganda. And especially for Uganda, which is landlocked and small. If you look at the African map, check the size of Uganda. You're landlocked, you're that small. It would be not strategic militarily for you to allow those enemies to first come to your country and then you fight them. If you also analyze even in international politics, the reason as to why the US can be able to fight Russia, not from US or from Russia, but rather choose a country like Ukraine and fight from there, is because it's always military strategic that you don't bring a war on your own land. So should you let your enemies, instead of combating the enemies after they have reached Uganda, now that's when the parliament will support you and say now the enemy is here, you rather fight the enemy when he's still in Somalia, when he's still the other side. So it's just military strategy, but people never understand, and when they see us a country taking such initiatives, they think it's very bad, they think it's selfish. Well, that cannot be true, perhaps some instance.
That has always been echoed by President Kagame, who said, we know the size of this land, we shall not accept the enemy to land here, we shall find them wherever they are.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a simple strategy that happens, and then the people like these ones of NUP, they will say politicize, they will politicize it and make it feel like this government is just greedy, but don't understand the dynamics, politically, strategy, defense, very simple basic.
If I appointed you the economic advisor to the Minister of Trade in Uganda, and you hear a policy such as this by Kenya, what would your advice be in this situation?
If I was the minister in Kenya or in Uganda?
In Uganda, and you heard of this policy by Kenya, what would be your next move as Minister of Trade?
Yes, now I think, unfortunately, because me, I'm already East African so much, I could also to relate, just like how Museveni did. You know, Museveni, when Kenya, at first instance, when they had banned our maize because it had aflatoxins, that was the reason. Again, the trade minister then advised Museveni, but we can also block these people. They have so much products, like you mentioned. Even their workforce, their workload, Kenya benefits so much from Uganda. They wanted Museveni to accept, and they also blocked Kenyans. But Museveni refused because he just decided to be the man who sacrifices. The whole point is, it depends on who you are. But the whole point is that I think in that instance, I would still have to let Kenya work on itself, but I wouldn't block it out for many other reasons because I would prioritize
You would
East
play
Africa.
the diplomatic card.
Yeah, above that. But what I think I wanted to mention on that is that now, when Kenya is doing whatever it's doing in terms of trade and blocking Ugandan coffee and stuff like that, we also need to recognize that there could have been options. There are options. He himself, Ruto, was saying it, that, you know, we could trade our milk to Central African Republic, take it to other countries as we get it cheaper. The same can still work. When you have that surplus, then the strategy in Kenya should be, how do we have this surplus of Kenya and take it to African Republic better? How do we even open up more markets so that we don't have surplus in Kenya? Instead, all this market is coming in, go somewhere else. Or that could
Is it a
be
political
options.
problem?
That, honestly, I cannot tell. I don't think I can authoritatively mention on that.
But Bright made it very clear that what we are talking about is a political problem.
That how?
We have General Museveni here, who has been around for 37 years, and is not trusted by his counterparts in other partner states. And sometimes they're able to even make decisions without having to think about Uganda. We know what has been happening in Tanzania, where Ugandans up to today must have a work permit to work in Tanzania. We are literally, if it wasn't for the shame of the spirit of East Africa, would perhaps be required to have visas to travel to Tanzania. There is quite a lot that Tanzania does independently, and they will not care about East Africa.
Exactly, but also I want to mention that quite a lot that happens in Tanzania independently, like I said. This is because now people like Bright want to narrow it to Museveni. So it's even Museveni. The same Tanzania, we had a bilateral agreement which is supposed to be between East African communities as a region and EU. The point was that EU was supposed to trade with E.A.C as a bloc, but Tanzania itself just decided to trade with EU. They made another agreement between Tanzania and EU, not EU coming to bargain and negotiate with the bloc. So again, that wasn't just premise on Museveni. So Tanzania has its own trust issues, but they can't be narrowed down to just Museveni. Like I said, for you to believe and for you to quantify substantially that Museveni is just not trusted would be a very lame and sad argument, just political, because I can trash it down on all levels. I just told you on security. This man is guarding presidents of other countries. That has never happened anywhere by any president, any other country.
Well, I'm very certain that if President Museveni had the information that this gentleman has put forward, he would be very proud as a president. Hearing from a person who is less than 35 years being able to articulate some of these things is amazing. Bright Muhumza, you're burning before I bring in the teacher. Yes, Muhumza.
I want to go back to on issue of free movement and the reasons why East African community was established. The stages of East African integration, since it was re-established, I can tell you none of them has been achieved. None of them has been achieved. He mentioned you have, you know,
it's on record. It's on record. We have 4 pillars. No. Customs union. Listen, customs union, common market protocol, monetary union. Listen, and political federation. Customs union.
How far is that?
Yes, customs union has fully been realized. Common market protocol have fully been realized, and now we are on to the next stage of monetary union. If you know for sure, if you follow debate, there's now debate on which country is going to host that institution, which is going to be like the East African
and
Central
of which
Bank.
that is resolved by Uganda being the headquarters for that. Yes,
so
Bright.
Let's allow.
Let's allow Bright. Yes,
I said I didn't come here for academic.
This is not so.
Yes, Bright.
I am not discussing so that I pass exams.
Yes.
I am discussing so that the listeners
are able to learn some of these things.
Yes, because they know that the free movement is you talked about, for example. It is not possible for you now to freedom enter Southern Sudan. You must be under protection of armed people. You cannot enter Congo through border of Bunagana. I talk with evidence because I do business there without being protected by military.
Then are you protected by the military yourself?
I am telling you, you cannot go to Congo through the border of Bunagana when you are not protected. By the way, there is no border. M23 already is too cover that whole area. It is not possible. My friend Banyaji.
Let's make some money. We'll be right back in a second.
It's tough. It's bold. It's real politics. The Big Seat.
Our very last lap of the show on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 CROOZE FM. Great music, great friends. Good morning. My name is Wesi Gebanyaji. The Big Seat, every particular Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11. Very fantastic show. I think without a lot of debate, we are exceptional and the best as far as politics, economics is concerned in this region. I don't know why the BBC has delayed to pick some of us and make things happen. But nevertheless, I'm excited to have a conversation on matters East Africa. And with me in studio is Mr. Thomas Moore Salita, who is a lecturer and an economist at Makerere University Business School. Engineer Edgar Mtundisa, who is a very good authority on matters East Africa. And the exceptional Bright Muhumuza, coordinator of National Unity Platform here in Western Uganda. And our voice of reason, Sifa Safi, panelist on the Big Set. The feedback is amazing. I want to thank you so much. Keep the conversation going on. But later now, let me give you an opportunity to call in and state your position on the same on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. We are live on YouTube. CROOZE TV, you'll be able to view us and, kind of relate the voices to the image, and you'll be good to go. Let's have your feedback coming through on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. Call on and then, let your opinion be put on record. Yes, as we wait for the calls. Yes, Bright.
Mr. Wanyaja was telling you that there is no single country, because my argument was in the beginning that the East African community, I look at it personally as cosmetic, as stage managed, as comic. I don't believe in it, because if anybody talks about free borders, free movement, I can tell you it is not possible. It is not there. It is just in words. Common currency, we shall never achieve it. As long as President Museveni is still the president of Uganda, there is no single country that will allow to have common currencies with a suspect. I can tell you that
he's a suspect of what?
But every country, if they have,
each time they are going for elections, they are paying homage.
You had under duress. It is under duress.
You have to withdraw this thing. They're very laughable.
General Kainerugaba saying
that
he wanted to take over Nairobi in 2 days.
Yeah, in actually 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Yes.
Sekedi complained that Uganda is doing some clandestine mobilization against their establishment. You know what? I can tell you that the only one bad boy of the club is General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And the reason I say that the question of East Africa integration is political.
To give you information, right? Kenyans were slaughtering themselves in 2007. It's until General Museveni deployed troops in Nairobi, and there was tranquility. There was restoration of order.
So what
we know of so many countries that have been unstable. We know the problem that Kenya is dealing with the bandits. And we know the work that General Bani Kudeme is doing at the 3rd Division. And all this is courtesy of General Museveni.
In Kenya, people were slaughtering themselves, fighting for democracy, fighting for their space. In Uganda, the government went to Kasese and killed over 60 people for no crimes committed. When we tried to demonstrate, when they arrested Bobi Wine, my president in Uganda, the military itself came and killed 62 people demonstrating because they wanted their president out. Here, it is different. It is a different story.
No, Kenya, the president said they were put out because they were undressing women wearing yellow.
In Kenya, people were fighting for their space. Here, the military came and started killing citizens. Don't you compare? Don't you have?
Let me have the lecturer. Thank you.
So the issue is in Uganda. In East Africa, the question of East Africa is political, and it needs a political approach.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Salita. You've heard it all. In terms of policy direction, how do we get to start off from here?
Okay, like I said earlier, Mr. Wesige, we have a structural problem, and when you have a structural problem, it spills over into all other aspects of life. So it will manifest as a political issue, and then the politicians, of course, will have a party. It may be
the economists, the land people, are seated in these boardrooms doing nothing to help the politicians correct some of these mistakes.
Yes, they are trying their level best, but like I said, we are still babies. We are still taking baby steps as far as the integration is concerned. Although effort has been made to kind of clear the way for trade, but the actual gist of integration has not been handled, which is production. You may clear the way for trade, but what are you going to trade? Goods. Where are they going to come from? Farms, the producers. Now, if you have similar producers or people who produce the same commodities in both countries,
then it will be a matter of policy.
Exactly.
The engagement for either of the partner states to sort that out.
And,
yes.
And that's why I talked of the industrial policy.
Okay.
What are you producing? Where are you producing it from? Who is producing what?
Okay.
Do we know the people who are producing milk in Uganda, for example?
We know Lato here is doing a good job here in Koranoria.
Do you know that we have about 3 or 4 people who have actually been blocked? When Kenya blocks powdered milk, it is about 3 or 4 exporters as well who are affected. So,
but the spillover, my land colleague, if 3 players are blocked, the effect is literally on the entire economy.
I'm not really saying that it is, since there are only 3 people, then it's not a big problem. That's not what I'm saying.
Yes. What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that if it is in the spirit of the integration, instead of seeing these Ugandan milk producers clashing with the Kenyan maybe milk producers, we should have a policy that integrates even the production systems of so that Ugandan farmers or milk producers cooperate with the Kenyan producers, and then we approach trade as a region.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you.
Not as individual.
In a second, parting shots. Let me start with Sefa. In a second.
Thank you, Vanyaji. One, Kenya should stop frustrating our efforts on value addition. We are turning milk into powder, and they're saying they don't want that as imports. But I'm saying the government should looking for alternative means. It's not a must that we should export to Kenya. If they don't want us as partners, then we should look for other alternatives. But secondly, I want to talk about the issue of mistrust again, because my friend here contradicted himself when he said that you have to have military to export goods to South Sudan and Congo. And this military is commanded by a person he doesn't trust. That is His Excellency, the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief. So for me, we should not, for the sake of, buying favor and whatever. Yeah. The fact is, this man is trusted. He's a symbol, he's an icon of peace in this country, in East Africa, and in the world at large. So that issue of security, we should put aside. And I want to tell you that when it comes to security, we don't take chances, like my friend said. If you know that your enemy is coming from somewhere, you don't need to wait for them to come. Because it's not a part that you're going to enjoy it.
Thank you, Sifa.
But finally,
a second, Sifa, time is fast spent. Yes.
These people, like I said, made this decision in haste, maybe to impress someone, the president or whatever, that they're working in this new government and all that. So for me, they should sit and reverse this, because it's going to affect not only us as Ugandans, but Kenyans and Ugandans who are in Kenya and Kenyans who are in Uganda, and generally Sifa, as a community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bright, in a second, sir.
Now, for Sifa,
in a second, time is fast spent.
To convince me to agree that because Museveni gives me protection, because I do business on gunpoint, on protection of military, when I want to enter Congo, when I want to enter Sudan, that President Museveni gives us military to protect us, to guard us, to do business on a gunpoint, to do business while protected by military. That is not freedom, Madam Sifa.
Okay.
We are saying that freedom is development. Where there is no freedom, nobody can talk about development. On East African integration, I can tell you that the challenge, I have said it, let me repeat it as I conclude, that the challenge of East Africa integration is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Thank you. Thank you. We've gotten that point. I think it's
If he doesn't recognize that peaceful, handover, peaceful transfer of leadership is paramount for the growth of the whole region, not only Uganda. I can tell you nothing will come from all these.
Thank you, Brighton Homes. Yes, Mr. Thomas Mo, give it to us, your parting shot in a second.
Yes, until the East African community goes deeper or gets serious into the business of integration by integrating both the production and things like working on things like the competition policy of producers, we are likely to take backward steps.
Okay, thank you so much. And our very own Edgar Mtundisa,
I think
your parting shot.
Yeah, this discussion was very interesting. It would have been interesting, but was very unfortunate. Where people who are protected from being gunned down, then they call that doing business under duress when they're protected. I think it's very sad. But number two, listen, for the viewers out there.
Let's allow Edgar. But your microphone is off, so who are you talking to?
What kind of a debater is this?
Yes. No. Let's have order. No, Bright. No. Have decorum. No.
For the viewers out there, I want them to understand that common currency does not depend on presidents. It's a matter of having a gold standard of an African currency. Then you can use whether your weak or strong currencies to buy that currency. The country which is richer will actually get more of the African currency. It doesn't depend on a president. Let them not take such narratives.
In a second.
But beyond that, in a second, I want to assure you that I think the East African community should continuously pursue this path. But also partner states must realize that they have an obligation to the East African community agenda.
Okay,
this business of pulling out and being protectionist is not in line with the sacrifice that you need to be integration based.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady. My punchline this week: we know there are ministers that are being implicated for misusing resources and diverting. We are calling on these ministers to resign. It's only courteous and humble. In the spirit of Ugandanness, let the ministers that think it was wrong to misappropriate these resources to take the honorable thing and resign. My name is West Gebanyaji. Thank you so much for listening in. Let's meet next Saturday on the Big Seat. The country show will be on tomorrow. We have news at the top of the hour. Stay up close for our next programming. Have a very fantastic weekend.
The views expressed on this program.
Creative Digital Media, creating with you. Creative Digital Media.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed managing a school